deconverted man here. Why did I do that noise? Don't know. Alright, atheism can't answer this question. Oh, good. Here we go. Alright. Let's just get it over with. Let's just do it. Okay, hold on. No, I gotta. No, wait. Before I start. Alright, there's plenty of questions that nobody can answer. Okay? There's tons of questions. Like, what's the true nature of reality? We don't know. You can't answer that. Why is there God rather than not God for the people that believe in God? That's just the way it is, right? This is not like a better answer. Just some things just are, And so it's like, well, but why and how does that work? And how does that function? And it's like there's not really an answer, right? And sometimes you just don't know. What's at the center of a black hole? Is it the thing that's at the center of a Tootsie Pop? I don't know. Nobody's been in there to find out. So there's plenty of questions we can answer. Doesn't prove anything. Okay? Doesn't prove anything. All right. Let's get to this stupidity. And it's stupid. Oh, yeah.
Still the same car. If you have a car and you replace the engine on it,
straight up analogy. So this is the ship of Theseus, and that's all he's doing. This is the ship of Theseus. So link in the description. Ship of Theseus is also known as the Theseus paradox. So the boat is going. You replace pieces of the boat until you've replaced every single piece of the boat. It goes in. Is it still the ship of Theseus, or is it a new ship? And then, you can make it even more complicated because you can grab all the pieces that you replaced and build another boat out of that. Is that the ship of Theseus? I don't know. And it's just an idea. It's just some thoughts that are weird to think about, right? And there isn't in logic. If you have a paradox, basically the law of non-contradiction just says, well, then it's done. That argument just isn't an argument. It's not even a thing. Paradox is just not allowed, and it just says no to it and throws it out immediately. So if it appears to be a paradox of some sort, then there's just something going wrong. So naming conventions are a human abstraction. We name the ship Theseus. The ship sails. As time goes by, you replace one board and then you replace another, so on and so forth, until eventually, I don't know how you had enough material to replace an entire ship, but it doesn't matter. You replace the entire ship. Is it still Theseus? Well, that's the name. So yeah. And then, well, what if you build another ship? Then is that Theseus? If you name it, yeah, it is. And applied to the human body, we are the ship of Theseus. And what does that mean for us as humans? It's like, well, if there's any inherent paradox in there, logic just says it doesn't matter. It's not real. It's illusionary. So also, this might just be the way things are, and we have to live with it. All right, okay.
Is it still the same car? Most people would say yes, it is the same car, since it generally has all the same parts. But is it the same car if you replace the frame also? At this point, you might be skeptical because the frame is an essential piece to this individual car. But you might be able to get around this and say that it's still the same car, since it has most of...
So it's the ship of Theseus. Okay, so we're going to skip past all of that because that's all it is. He's just recapping the ship of Theseus.
Why does this explanation matter? Well, the same concept of parts being changed happens within every single human being
Okay, so yeah, he's just applying the ship of Theseus to us. Okay. So, and then he's, how many cells are replaced, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. And then he has to sell his crap, merchandise, whatever, back to the video.
Body, that is your cells, are almost entirely different to the matter or cells that made up your body when you were born.
Yep, that's true.
Now, as we said, a car in which practically all its parts are completely replaced would thus become a new or different car.
Yep.
But what follows from this is that if practically all our cells in our body become replaced, then we would be an entirely different person,
Yeah, and we are an entirely different person. The you that exists today is not the you as a baby.
or human being than the one to which we were when we were born. Now, of course, this view only holds true under an atheistic, naturalist view of reality.
Well, it's true regardless. It's still real. That's still the case. You are a different person. The you that exists today is not the you from 10 years ago. That's still true no matter what your view is, what your worldview is, what your ideas is. It's still the case. You are a different person.
In which mankind does not have souls which are immaterial. For the atheist in this paradigm, the world is just made up of matter. There is no soul and no God.
Well, I mean, you could technically be an atheist and believe in a soul, but there's no evidence for soul or God or anything, so why should we believe in those things? He's not going to give us any evidence or proof or any argument for those things. It's just going to argue against the strawman construct that he's built using the ship of Theseus and appeal to and from analogy. Okay, so there has to be a soul because ship of Theseus, I guess.
But the absurdities of this position begin to arise, such as we have just covered. For the atheist would have to say that we are a different human being from when we were born. The reason this holds true is that there is no consistency of personhood in a materialistic worldview in which...
Yeah, there isn't. Not really. I mean, there is, but there isn't. I mean, kind of, sort of. There's this sense of you that's persistent, perhaps. Yeah, there's some cells that last your entire life. Yeah. So I mean, but we're gonna ignore reality. We don't need little pesky reminders of reality. We're doing apologetics. We can't have reality stand in our way. All right. Anyway, so yeah, and that idea of you does change over time. So what he's saying isn't really applicable, is it? Yeah.
Which all our parts are completely different. For just as I am a different individual human being to my father, I would also be a different individual human than the one I was just a few years ago.
And you are, basically. I mean, essentially, in some respect. Although that's not how we look at things, broadly speaking, because we apply labels to people that we call the name. So you're fish head, whatever, butthead, fart for face, whatever your name might be. I just had to come up with some insults because I got to get that in there. Just get it out of the way. Whatever your name might be, Dan Green. There's the name. That's just the label. But that, who I was as a kid is not who I am as an adult. Welcome to reality. All right. Anyways.
Practically all my cells would be replaced. Now, a bunch of more absurdities arise. For example, if you committed a crime like murder a decade ago, then the human being who you were a decade ago would be guilty of the crime. But
okay, so this isn't how laws work. And so, just to make sure I was correct about that, because I was like, I don't want to just say stuff, and not have, some proof of it. So there's court cases where convictions have been held when somebody had a severe memory impairment. So memory loss doesn't invalidate past criminal identification. And there's a bunch of cases. And I highlighted one because I only need one in the links below. This is the one I highlighted, United States versus Owen. So they suffered an attack and, they were able to identify it and all this, but then he couldn't remember it. And, then so basically they upheld the thing, even though there was memory loss involved. So it doesn't matter, even if you lose your memory, you can still be upheld for a crime that you did. So so that's how we treat that. Now, maybe that's wrong, you know. If you could prove definitively that somebody had amnesia, because I guess somebody could fake it, right? But if you could prove it, then maybe we shouldn't hold that person responsible. But and then of course there's let's see what oh yeah, that was that, right? So the way the law works is the you from 10 years ago, even if you had amnesia, which is an extreme thing that could happen, you would still be held responsible for that action that you took 10 years ago. So it doesn't matter that you have changed since that event, as long as the time to prosecute hasn't passed, you could still be held responsible for the crime. Yeah. So the only maybe exception would be if you truly didn't know that you were doing it. And even then, who knows? I don't know. Like somebody sleepwalking or something like that. If we could prove, definitively that they were sleepwalking and they happened to have a knife in their hand and killed somebody, then is that murder or manslaughter? That's up to the court. But and actually accepting that many of the actions that we take are due to biological processes outside of our control would fundamentally change our legal system, hopefully for the better. But if we pretend there's a soul, then we can still hold people guilty that shouldn't be guilty due to actual reality. Because, we just want a soul to exist. It's just really bad if we don't have a soul. And we don't like that.
But you wouldn't be now since you are a completely new human being. To give an analogy using our car example, say there is a car that hit and killed a person a decade ago.
So same analogy, same ship of Theseus.
But over time, you replaced almost every single part of the car.
That doesn't matter because we don't blame the car for the hitting. We blame the person that drives the car. Now, maybe if it was an AI-driven vehicle, that might change things. I'm not sure who gets prosecuted. If your car is being driven and it hits somebody and you're not driving it, who gets sued? I don't know.
Such that it is a new car now. Well, you couldn't say that it hit and killed that person since it is a new car with new parts.
It doesn't matter because that's not how law works.
Or take another absurdity in regards to marriage. For if you got married to someone a decade ago, then they wouldn't really necessarily still be married to you. For the person...
This is just... He's just making the same point over and over again. So it's a repetitive argument. I just hate when people repeat stuff over and over again. It gets really annoying, Don't you just hate when people just repeat stuff over and over again? It kind of reminds me of like when somebody just kind of like goes, hey, this point, I want to make it more than once. And so then they just repeat it over and over again. Don't you hate that when people repeat things over and over again?
Person or human being they married is completely different to you.
And they are, and that's why sometimes divorce happens. You're not the same person I married. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we changed. I know, it's horrible. Oh man.
Fundamentally, these are the practical absurdities of holding to the materialistic view of reality.
No, those are just things that you made up that you're pretending are absurdities. But yeah, you're not the same person. So anyways.
For reality itself seems to break down into meaninglessness. Nevertheless, this is contrary to our natural intuitions, and it is fundamentally contrary to the true view of reality, which is
intuition can be wrong.
That we as human beings are endowed with rational souls that are immaterial.
Well, that's your claim. Now you have to substantiate that claim with evidence.
From the moment of conception, the present moment now, and in the future, we are the same one person due to our rational soul, which does...
No, you're not.
not get replaced or gets faded away like dust.
Prove there's a soul.
For our soul possesses our faculties of our intellect and our will.
Does it? How do you know that? How can you prove that? So here's the thing. Let's see. This split brain thing that was done ages ago, and the guy talked about it, and the links in the description. And there's been other things like that since then. And maybe it's questionable. Maybe he got it wrong. Yeah, it's possible. But time and again, personality changes if your brain gets damaged in some way, shape, or form. If you get drunk, that you is different from the you that isn't drunk. If you get high, that you is different from the one that isn't high. So we know that your brain state changes your personality. And we know with amnesia people that they'll basically be a whole new person. So that doesn't show a persistence of anything at all. And this idea that people are rational, no, not everybody is. There are some people born without any rationality whatsoever. There's sociopaths and psychopaths and whatever, people that are born without the ability to have any empathy at all. And it's like, okay, well, what happened to their soul? You know, there's no proof of the thing. You're just saying words. Anyways, all right.
And its conjoining to the body allows for us to be truly a human person. Now, not only can the soul be demonstrated to exist from sacred scripture, but
it can be demonstrated from sacred scripture. That's a circular argument, you know, because I mean, you haven't proven the sacred scripture is sacred. And also, no, you can't prove anything using that because you'd have to prove the sacred scripture is reliable at all. So, no, that doesn't prove anything.
But it can also be shown to be true from human reason, as
you didn't show it to be true.
I have covered in greater detail in other videos.
Here, humans have soul, and here's proof. Oh, great. I guess we'll have to look at that video next. I'm waiting for the question that can't be answered, by the way.
But to briefly sum up the argument, knowledge, or even truth taken in the abstract sense, is not limited to the here and now. It is universal in itself. For example, our knowledge of the idea of existence or being is universal.
Is it? And so, what? Huh?
It's not just applicable to a few things, but everything that is in reality and has existence in some sense.
What are you talking about?
Thus, our idea of existence is universal and applicable to anything that exists.
What? What? Prove it. What does that mean? What does that have to do with anything?
But universals are immaterial.
Oh, geez, here we go. Theseus doesn't understand immaterial ideas. Yes, it's a concept that exists in the brain that isn't the same as oh, geez.
If our idea of universals were material, they would be limited to the here and now and wouldn't really be universal.
Yes, the idea is an idea, and we call that immaterial because that's the label we gave it. But it's not an actual thing. That's just the label. Okay, this is I had a video on it somewhere. No, but yeah, okay. So the concept is just that. It's just a concept. It's not real beyond that. It's an object of the mind. It doesn't exist except as an idea. Okay, and we call it immaterial. Again, just that's the label we gave it, and that's different from some sort of immaterial realm that you think exists. The realm isn't a realm. It's not a separate thing from that's distinct. And this is the problem that Plato had way back when, and it's a problem that some theists still have. This idea that somehow it being immaterial makes it a thing that belongs in its own realm, when no, It's just that's the label that we've given it, and we really should have come up with a better label by now. So
Thus, our knowledge of universals necessarily would have to be immaterial. But immateriality can only be understood through an intellect that is immaterial,
no, immateriality is simply a label that we have applied to certain ideas, and that these are concepts of the mind that only exist in the mind and nowhere else. So if the mind isn't, then that idea isn't. So any letter or number or musical notes are constructs of the mind. They only exist in your mind. That's it. Period. End of story. There is no number one in the universe. There is no letter A in the universe. There is no musical note in the universe. These are just ideas that we have. And we're the only entities that can have these sort of ideas. If there's no people around, then those ideas aren't. So the tree is not called a tree anymore if there's no one to call it a tree. But whatever things the tree does without anybody around is still going to be true. The tree falling in the woods on its own with nobody around is still going to make a sound because that's how reality functions. Nobody has to be there to see it happen. Okay? We don't need to label it a tree or label the thing that happens when it crashes down a sound, because those things still are things. It's just there's nobody to label those things. The labels are objects of the mind. So if you think that God is immaterial in the same way that you think these ideas are immaterial, then your God is nothing more than an object of the mind, and then it cannot be anything more real than that. And I'd be okay with that because I'm a skeptic, but you wouldn't be.
lest the universal become particular and limited to the here and now. And therefore, we have an
Yes, universals and particulars are very interesting. You know, the universal house, you can't draw a house. You can only draw a particular type of house. And the universal is just an idea. It's a concept. There is no actual universal. It's just purely an abstract object of the mind. Anyways.
material soul.
Uh-huh.
The
Whatever.
atheistic worldview can simply not account
there's no atheistic worldview.
for the human person. Their vain ways of thinking lead to absurd conclusions that would
Vain ways of thinking. Wow, okay.
lead to the destruction
Poison of the well, by the way.
of duties and obligations, and even society itself.
What?
Even if you appealed to the vague notion of your conscience, it would only be an illusion, for it is founded upon your material body, which is always changing.
Yeah, and? I mean, your appeal to consequence doesn't matter. That's just the way things are.
Only under a Christian account of reality can the human person be truly understood.
No, it can't be, actually. There's nothing to understand under Christianity. That you can't use Christianity to understand psychology or neurology. There's nothing in there that lets you understand human in that sense. So this is just nonsense.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please.
All right, so nothing here. Yeah. Anyway, so there was no proof. I guess he has proof in that other video, and I don't feel like covering that today. So maybe I'll cover it tomorrow. And yeah, there was no empirical evidence or repeatable tests shown, and the illogic here is using an analogy to argue to and from the somehow this apparent contradiction in what you are today being different than what you were 10 years ago. Therefore, because he thinks that means something, that means that you have to have a soul to escape that problem. It's complete incoherence. Both, okay, not even syllogistic in nature, but also not an essay format, because he didn't really have, he had a thesis statement, he didn't support it with anything. So it's just a confused mumbo jumbo of absolute nonsense. And there was no question at any point asked that couldn't be answered. Also on top of everything. So we don't have a sound argument. We don't even have a valid argument for that matter. So no empirical evidence, no repeatable test, no sound argument, no anything here. And so we have to discard his argument in full. You have to discard his conclusion in full. And that's it. All right. He can't answer anything. I guess I'll check out his next video next time. And until then, be skeptical. And after that, stay skeptical. Wow, I did a short video in less than an hour? I can't believe it. I forgot to end the stream.